She begged for mercy, but a vicious kick to her pregnant belly was his only answer. Her world shattered instantly. But her husband, a man forged in battle, would turn their pain into a reckoning no one saw coming. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the annual Founders' Day fair in the small town of Harmony Creek. Mark Miller, 45, a former Army Ranger with a quiet strength that belied the intensity in his steel blue eyes, smiled as he watched his wife, Sarah. At 38, she was radiant, her hand resting gently on her visibly pregnant belly, their first child due in a few months. Mark, now a local wood craftsman, had found a measure of peace in this town after his years of service, a peace he guarded fiercely. But Harmony Creek had a discordant note, Community Safety Chief Dale Evans. A man whose authority, puffed up by a small-town kingdom, often curdled into arrogance. Evans, a portly man in his late 50s with a perpetual sneer, was strutting through the fair, his uniform stretched taut over his considerable girth, barking orders at volunteers. The trouble began near the pie-judging tent. A stray dog, excited by the crowd, had darted through, and Evans began bellowing, causing a child to cry. Sarah, ever compassionate, stepped forward. "Chief Evans," she said politely, "he's just a scared pup. There's no need to shout like that at the children." Evans whirled, his face flushing crimson. "And who are you to tell me how to do my job, lady?" His eyes flicked disdainfully over Sarah, then to Mark, who was now moving to her side. "Oh, it's Miller's wife. Think your husband's service gives you special privileges here?" Mark placed a calming hand on Sarah's arm. "Chief, my wife meant no disrespect. She was just concerned for the children." His voice was low, controlled, the way it had been in 100 tense situations far from home. But Evans saw it as a challenge. "Disrespect? You people are always full of disrespect," he spat, stepping closer, invading Sarah's space. "You think you can just question me?" He jabbed a thick finger toward Sarah. "You need to learn some respect." Before Mark could physically interpose himself further, Evans, his face a mask of fury, lashed out. Not with his hand, but with his heavy work boot. A sickening thud echoed as it connected squarely with Sarah's pregnant stomach. A choked gasp tore from Sarah's lips as she crumpled, her hands flying to her belly, her eyes wide with terror and agony. The festive atmosphere of the fair shattered. Screams erupted from horrified onlookers. Mark, a primal roar verp from his chest / erupting from his chest, was by Sarah's side in an instant, shielding her protectively. "Sarah! My God, Sarah!" He gently cradled her, his ranger training kicking in as he assessed her, his face a maelstrom of fury and terror. "Somebody call an ambulance." "Now," he bellowed, his voice a commander's bark that cut through the chaos. Several people fumbled for their phones, their faces pale with shock. Chief Evans, however, stood his ground, his expression shifting from rage to a defensive bluster. She tripped. She was being aggressive, he stammered, looking around for support that wasn't there. A few brave souls were already recording the scene, their phone cameras fixed on the fallen pregnant woman and the unrepentant chief. The minutes stretched into an eternity before paramedics arrived. Mark never left Sarah's side, whispering assurances, his hand a steady presence on her arm even as his mind reeled. At the small local hospital, the diagnosis was grim: severe bruising, risk of placental abruption, and extreme distress for both Sarah and the unborn child. Sarah was sedated, her face tear-streaked even in her forced slumber. The following day, Mark, his eyes hollow with sleeplessness but burning with cold fury, went to the town hall. He filed a formal complaint against Chief Evans, detailing the unprovoked assault. He was met with platitudes and thinly veiled skepticism. "Chief Evans has served this community for 20 years, Mr. Miller," Mayor Thompson said, a man known more for his golf handicap than his leadership. "There must be some misunderstanding. Perhaps your wife was overwrought." No action was taken against Evans. No public statement of concern was issued. The few videos that had surfaced on local social media groups were quickly and quietly removed, attributed to community guidelines violations. It was clear Harmony Creek's leadership intended to sweep the incident under the rug, protecting one of their own. The official indifference was almost as brutal as the kick itself. Days turned into a week. Sarah remained hospitalized, the emotional scars as deep as the physical ones. The baby's condition was precarious. Mark sat by her bedside, holding her hand, the image of Evan's boot striking his wife replaying endlessly in his mind. The town's silence was a festering wound. He had faced down enemies in far-flung war zones, men who wanted him dead. But this betrayal, this calculated indifference in the place he'd chosen for peace, ignited a different kind of fire within him. This wouldn't be about raw vengeance. His ranger creed was about mission, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to what was right. His new mission was clear: justice for Sarah, and a reckoning for Dale Evans and the system that protected him. Mark knew the local channels were compromised. Mayor Thompson was clearly in Evans' pocket, or at least unwilling to challenge him. The small-town police force, essentially Evans' subordinates, wouldn't investigate their chief. He was on his own, but not entirely. He still had his training, his intellect, and a network forged in shared hardship. He began meticulously. First, a detailed written account of the incident, cross-referencing it with the precise times and layouts of the fair. He discreetly reached out to people he'd seen recording, appealing to their conscience. Some were scared, but a few, angered by Evans' long-standing bullying, anonymously forwarded him their footage. The quality varied, but pieced together, it painted an undeniable picture of the assault. Next, he contacted his old unit members. Not for strong-arm tactics, but for expertise. One was now a forensic accountant, another a private investigator, a third a sharp-witted paralegal. He laid out the situation in a secure video call. "I'm not looking for a street fight," Mark told them, his voice calm but laced with steel. "I'm looking to dismantle his power, legally and publicly. I need to expose what he is, and what this town's leadership is allowing." His friends listened, their faces grim. They understood unspoken oaths. They knew Mark wasn't a man to be trifled with when his family was threatened. "We're in, Mark," said a voice. "Tell us what you need." The strategy began to form, a multi-pronged assault on Evans' reputation, his authority, and the complacency of Harmony Creek. Mark's initial plan involved a slow, methodical gathering of irrefutable evidence. His private investigator friend, a wiry ex-Intel NCO named Chavez, began discreet inquiries into Chief Evans' past. It didn't take long to uncover a pattern. Whispers of Evans using his position for personal gain, of silencing critics with threats, of previous excessive force complaints that had mysteriously vanished from town records. Chavez compiled a dossier, meticulously documented. Simultaneously, Mark, with the help of his paralegal friend, Sarah Beth, packaged the clearest video clips of the assault on Sarah, along with her anonymized medical reports detailing the severity of her injuries and the risk to the baby. They added sworn, notarized affidavits from 2 witnesses who were initially hesitant but agreed to speak out after Mark personally assured them of support. This wasn't for local consumption yet. Mark knew the town's power structure would try to quash it. Instead, Sarah Beth identified a tenacious investigative journalist, a Pulitzer finalist working for a major regional newspaper in the state capital, known for taking on entrenched corruption. The package was sent, encrypted and untraceable back to Mark directly, but with a clear, concise cover letter outlining the situation and the local cover-up. 2 weeks later, the story broke. Harmony Creek horror, pregnant woman brutally kicked by town safety chief, officials silent. The headline was stark, the accompanying article detailed, including stills from the video and excerpts from the medical reports. It painted a damning picture of Evans and the town's complicity. The fallout was immediate and explosive. The regional paper's story was picked up by statewide news outlets, then national blogs. Social media erupted. Hashtag Justice for Sarah Miller and hashtag Fire Chief Evans trended. People were horrified by the brutality, but even more incensed by the town's attempt to silence it. Veterans organizations across the state, alerted by Mark's network, issued strong condemnations. "An attack on a military family is an attack on all who served," read one statement from a prominent veterans advocacy group. They highlighted Mark's Ranger service, framing the assault not just as an attack on a pregnant woman, but as a profound disrespect to a decorated veteran and his family. This angle resonated deeply, bringing a new wave of supporters and immense pressure on Harmony Creek. The carefully constructed wall of silence around Chief Evans began to crumble. The media firestorm forced Harmony Creek out of its complacent stupor. Mayor Thompson, visibly flustered, held a press conference, promising a full and thorough investigation, a stark contrast to his earlier dismissiveness. But for many residents, it was too little, too late. Inspired by the external outcry and emboldened by Mark's quiet resolve, a grassroots movement began to form. It started with a candlelight vigil for Sarah outside the hospital, then grew into weekly peaceful protests outside Town Hall. Mark, initially hesitant to be the public face, found himself thrust into a leadership role. His military experience, his ability to organize, to speak with calm authority, to inspire, proved invaluable. He wasn't a fiery orator, but his words, spoken with a measured intensity and deep conviction, resonated more powerfully than any tirade. He spoke of Sarah, of their hopes for their child, of the betrayal they felt. He also spoke of a larger issue, the abuse of power and the need for accountability in their community. "This isn't just about my family," he told a crowd of several hundred, a mix of longtime residents, other veterans, and concerned citizens from neighboring towns. "This is about ensuring Harmony Creek is a safe and just place for all families." Veterans, some in wheelchairs, others lean and weathered, stood shoulder to shoulder with young parents and elderly townsfolk. They carried signs, "Veterans for Sarah, protect our mothers, Evans must go." The protests were orderly but unyielding. Chief Evans, meanwhile, was feeling the heat. He tried to discredit Mark, leaking rumors about Mark having a short temper or PTSD issues from his service. But Mark, anticipating such tactics, had already built a strong support system. His veteran friends, some with media savvy, quickly debunked the smears, turning them back on Evans by highlighting his desperation. A pro bono legal team, assembled through the Veterans Advocacy Network, stepped forward to represent the Millers. They were a formidable group, experienced in civil rights and municipal litigation. They announced their intent to file a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Chief Evans personally and against the town of Harmony Creek for negligence, battery, and fostering a culture of impunity. The threat of a costly, high-profile legal battle sent further shockwaves through the town's leadership. The weight of justice was becoming too heavy for them to ignore. The lawsuit, when officially filed, became the focal point of the ongoing struggle. Miller versus Evans and the town of Harmony Creek was more than a legal case, it was a public trial of the town's conscience. Mark's legal team, led by a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer named Jessica Ramirez, herself an Air Force veteran, was relentless in the pre-trial discovery phase. They subpoenaed town records, personnel files, and communication logs, unearthing further evidence of Evans' misconduct and the administration's deliberate attempts to ignore or bury complaints. Each revelation was strategically shared with the press by Mark's informal media team, keeping the story alive and the pressure mounting. Town hall meetings became standing room-only affairs, with citizens grilling Mayor Thompson and the council members. Evans, under advice from his own newly hired, expensive lawyer, paid for by a hastily arranged defense fund many suspected was quietly backed by nervous town officials, remained silent, his public appearances ceasing. His absence only fueled the anger. The turning point came during a deposition. Chavez, Mark's PI friend, had tracked down a former town employee who had been wrongfully terminated by Evans years prior after witnessing another act of brutality. Initially terrified to speak, she was moved by Sarah's plight and Mark's unwavering fight. Her testimony, detailing Evans' vindictive nature and the mayor's complicity in covering it up, was explosive. Sarah, though still recovering and emotionally fragile, insisted on giving her deposition. With Mark by her side, she recounted the events of that horrifying day at the fair, her voice trembling but clear. Her quiet dignity and palpable pain were more damning than any shouted accusation. The transcript, leaked to the media, painted an undeniable picture of victimhood and abuse. Faced with a mountain of evidence, relentless public pressure, and the prospect of a financially ruinous and reputation-shattering trial, cracks appeared in the town's defense. Rumors circulated that Mayor Thompson was looking for a way to cut Evans loose to save his own skin and the town's coffers. The showdown was no longer a matter of if, but when. The when came sooner than expected. Just weeks before the trial was set to begin, Chief Dale Evans, facing overwhelming evidence and a complete lack of public or political support, tendered his resignation, effective immediately. Shortly thereafter, the town council, in a special session, voted to approve a substantial settlement with the Miller family, which included a formal public apology, full coverage of Sarah's medical expenses, and a contribution to a fund for victims of abuse of power. Criminal charges against Evans for assault were also filed by the county prosecutor, a direct result of the public pressure and the strength of the evidence Mark had compiled. Months later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl, named Hope. The journey had been arduous, the scars would remain, but holding their daughter, Mark and Sarah felt a profound sense of peace and a new beginning. The settlement money was largely channeled into a foundation Mark established to support community oversight initiatives and provide legal aid to those fighting similar injustices. Chief Evans was eventually convicted of misdemeanor assault and received probation and mandatory anger management, a sentence many felt was too light, but his career and reputation were irrevocably destroyed. More importantly, Harmony Creek underwent significant reforms. A citizen review board for community safety was established, new training protocols were implemented, and Mayor Thompson, his credibility shattered, announced he would not seek re-election. Mark Miller, the quiet craftsman and ex-ranger, became an accidental hero, a symbol of how one determined individual, armed with courage and supported by community, could challenge a corrupt system and bring about meaningful change. His fight reminded everyone that justice, even when delayed, is always worth fighting for. What are your thoughts on Mark's journey from a husband seeking to protect his family to a catalyst for community change? How can we ensure accountability from those in power? Share your experiences and insights in the comments below. Please remember to comment with respect. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and the fight for justice.